How many watts does it take in a cyclocross race to finish on the podium, top 5 at your local cyclocross race? I'm gonna let you into all of the power I put out a couple of weeks ago at my first cyclocross race of the season, give you all of the numbers so you can roughly work out what is required to get to that pointy end. The top 5, I'm not talking on the big stage with the big boys, they are putting out much more power than this chopper. But to be able to be competitive in your local league, these are the numbers I am hitting. So obviously with cyclocross, we have that crazy fast start where everyone just goes out like a bat out of hell and you are literally eyes jumping out your head going full gas. So for the first 21 seconds of the race, it was full gas for me before it goes downhill a bit. So I've segmented out that 21 seconds and you'll see that I hit 655 watts for that first 21 seconds. So based off my current FTPs, probably at about 280 watts, you'll see that I am way over double my threshold for that first 21 seconds. So you are all in, suffering straight away, and then it's just a case of trying to get some recovery in when you can on the descents, the corners, stuff like that. But straight from the gun, it is balls to the wall, 655 watts. Now don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, I do not stay anywhere near that kind of wattage for the entire race. As you know, in cyclocross it can be very spiky, so I'm using my laptop here to get all of the data over. But basically the first kilometre, or 3 minutes 27 of this race, I averaged 300 watts. So we had that initial surge of 600 plus watts for 21 seconds. It does then settle down. What you need to remember in cross, in this race there was 3 segments where I was off the bike. One for the hurdles, one for some stairs that I ran up, and the third one was an awkward little bank. Apart from that, we are on the bike the whole time. It's a hilly course, for me anyway. There's over 300 metres of elevation in this race. But yeah, so the first 3 minutes 27, we are at 300 watts average. It is very spiky though. You're battling for position, and the further back you are, the more spiking you're going to do, because you can't just settle into your own pace. You're trying to get the elbow sharp and fend off everyone else at the same time as trying to move up through the field if you've got a bit of a bad start. So average power 300 watts, normalised power was 346 watts. So that first 3 minutes 27, I'm still well over my FTP at this point.
Ooh, you're hard.
That is a 3.5 minute proper VO2 max effort. And it's not just like I'm at 110% of my threshold, just average power. You got to think we're then spiking out of every corner, battling for position, and it really does burn the lungs, get the legs fired up, and it's a painful start. There's no two ways about it. There is nowhere to hide, balls to the wall. It then settles down. Everyone then realises, oh boy, we've got 60 minutes of this. I don't normally show this details that much. You guys see me put the video out where I'm doing like 400-500 watts. They are tiny snippets of when I'm pinging. My actual average power is, and normalised power is pretty low, and people are probably going to be quite surprised by that. But so after that, the next 3 minutes, my average power then drops to 269 watts, and normalised power is about 300. So my normalised power is still over threshold at the moment. So we've gone nearly 7 minutes now where I'm over threshold for normalised power, and also my heart rate will be jacked up because I'm doing things like dismounting the bike, running, which spikes the heart rate, gets the legs firing. So the first 7.5 minutes, you got to be willing to suffer like a dog. The first lap, you are fighting for your life. There is no two ways about it, especially if you haven't got a front row start because you're getting in all these battles. It does then settle down. So after that, my average power for the first 5 kilometers of this race, or 17 minutes, is 261 watts. So not quite the 400 plus watts you see when I'm uploading videos, and the 500 watts that Wout and Pidcock and all those guys are doing. This is a local league chopper that doesn't have those sort of numbers. So 261 watts average, and the normalised power is 329 watts. So I am still about 50 watts normalised power over my FTP for that first 17 minutes. So you can see that first quarter of the race, I have gone really, really hard. I'm fighting for position. I'm trying to move up through the field. And I do pay a little bit of a price for that later in the race. But once you get through that first 17 minutes, as long as you haven't completely blown your biscuit, you can get a little bit of recovery in and get into a position where you can start to set your own pace, go for your own race sort of thing, rather than trying to fight off people around you, do little sprints out of corners to get round people, or dive bomb if that's what you're into. So it does settle down after that. You will see the next 5 kilometers after that, or the next 17 minutes, my pace, average speed still stays the same, elevation, everything, but I've now dropped down to 249 watts average and 271 watts normalised power. So that is about normal for me now. That is where I want to be. Obviously, as I've started to burn matches early on, that initial high normalised power is because you've got that really aggressive start, and then you're also trying to fight for position, and you're battling people, you're putting in surges where you don't want to try and close down gaps. So that first 34 minutes is pretty full on, and then it's just a case of clinging on for dear life. That is the only way I can describe it. The next 17 minutes after that, my average power is now at 237 watts. We are slowly getting slower, and that is just because your boy's not got enough fitness to keep throwing those massive surges in. So once I've got through that first half an hour, if I'm in a good position and if I haven't completely destroyed myself, it is now about getting into a rhythm, getting into a pace, and just keeping things moving as fast as possible. So 237 watts average, and normalised power is 263 watts. So you can see it's all starting to drop down a little bit now. Maybe I invested a little bit too much too early, but you'll see from the overall numbers that it was probably about right. So in terms of the overall race, we were racing for 1 hour 4 minutes, distance was 18.5, average heart rate, I wouldn't worry about that too much because it was on my watch, and elevation gain was 392 metres. So over a cross race, I'd say that is quite a lot of climbing because it's on the side of a hill. Now, for the full race, the full 1 hour and 4 minutes, my average power was 248 watts. Yes, I know people are probably expecting to get a podium at your local league that you're doing like 300 plus watts. That's not the case for me. The most important number is obviously normalised power, because like I said, you're dismounting the bike a lot, so that averages out between your zeros, etc. And my normalised power is 272 watts. So still, normalised power is just basically around threshold. I'm not doing anything wild. There's probably people out there that are looking at these numbers and seeing these numbers. The reason why I don't share them is because then you know what you've got to do to beat me, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a Wessex League rider. So 272 watts normalised power. My weight for this race was 69 kilos. So I think it probably works out just under 4 watts per kilo. The difference is, I'm just looking on my phone to get the power zones. The distribution of power between each zone is pretty wild. So I actually spent 41% of the race in zone 1. So quite a lot of time is obviously spent between 0 and 183 watts, but also 20% of my race was like zone 7, like basically totally anaerobic, over 422 watts. So I spent 12 minutes 44 over 422 watts, and that's all of the spikes, all of the sprinting out of corners, getting back up to speed, because there's a huge element of trying to get up to speed as fast as you can when you've had to slow down to dismount and stuff like that. So there is all these surges, the surges at the start of the race. And then another big thing is people might look at this and think like, wow, I'm doing 300 watts normalised power for these races and didn't finish as high up as me, or maybe people are doing less. But a lot of it is like the skills. How much speed can you hold on the course? Because at the end of the day, that is the main objective, to get from the start to the finish as fast as you can, as fast at average speed as you can. So little things like, there's sections of the course where I'm going into corners, I do not touch the brakes. It is point and shoot, and I see a lot of people touching the brakes in these sections, and you've got to find these elements where you can just literally get going, hold your speed, don't touch the brakes, and maintain that speed as much as possible. And in these points, you're probably doing 0 watts. You touch the brakes, there's a little bit of your average speed gone. So maintaining that speed through the twisty sections, also knowing when to dismount for the run-ups, for the stairs and stuff like that, is really important. Getting it as close as you can to the point you want to keep your speed up, and when you're dismounting as well, keeping that speed nice and high. But yeah, so my average power 248 watts, normalised 272 watts. I'm a big fan of watching people do these videos. They normally break it down on the road because it's way easier to see, like, done 5 minutes at 500 watts, this guy's an animal. But it's interesting to see it in cross, just how spiky my efforts are and stuff like that. I'll be interested to know if anyone else has got a power meter, what their sort of average power is and normalised power, and obviously a slightly different video for me. So if you enjoyed this sort of breakdown of the watts I'm actually doing, because I never normally give this away, please do comment down below, and hopefully I can try and make some more of these. It's easy when I'm on one bike the whole race. When I'm two biking it, it's not so easy because my power meter switches off, etc. But those are the numbers: 248 watts average, 272 watts normalised. You know what you've got to do to get a top 5 now. So also you've got to rely on only a certain amount of fast people turning up, unfortunately. If loads of fast people turn up, your boy's not getting a podium with that. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.